Like you see, for example, in modern day research also, there are certain researches, which say in material science, which require experimenting on gold. Yeah, AU gold. Gold very good. So, it's an inert metal, very good for a lot of research, right? So, and second gold is silver. So gold, silver, a lot of researches are done. Now, if somebody is researching on gold, he'll be very careful with that research. What is the care? Oh, it's valuable, is it not? Very careful. How much to use? If it doesn't use, there is no result. Is it not? And you have to do an experiment on gold, say, and produce a result. If you don't put any gold, what is the research then? Is it not? The gold has to be put. But he'll put very milligram. Very cautious, very precise instruments, very great attention. And then they will try everything to retrieve back that gold. I have seen researchers and professors, they retrieve back every compound. No, it becomes fume. They don't let that fume go away. They want to condensate that fume. So experiment was 10 hours. They will do 20 hours of procedure. First to conduct the experiment and to retrieve back as much as they can. And then store it again. No? Cool it, dry it, store it for reuse again. Like that. So what to say of gold? So the whole point is that it's valuable. In a similar way, a Kshatriya killing animals will be like that. We understanding life is very valuable. So I can utilize it if it is being used for yagya. If it is being used for a higher cause, I can utilize it, but very carefully. Great question. That's the idea.
And also you could experiment for materialistic things without God consciousness. This is actually giving so much pain to the innocent animals. शास्त्र में recommended नहीं है जितना उत्पाद दुनिया में जाती है.
Therefore, so all this is going to be basic minimum. That's the point. So the killing is always going to be basic minimum. The rock bottom basic minimum. Okay. Text 19. Sirisha snigdhata raksha samaikshata samantata Uchivanidamurvishaha Sada Samharshayanniva. Just to encourage the members of the assembly and to enhance their pleasure, King Prithu glanced over them with eyes that seemed like stars in a sky wet with dew. He then spoke to them in a great voice. Here is Prithu Maharaj going to speak to his assembly. Charuchitrapadam snakshnam Mrishtam Gudam Vikalvam Sarveshamup Karartham Tada Anuvadan Iva. Maharaj Prithu's speech was very beautiful, full of metaphorical language, clearly understandable and very pleasing to hear. His words were all grave and sudden. It appears that when he spoke, he expressed his personal realization of the absolute truth in order to benefit all who were present. Maharaj Prithu was beautiful in his external bodily features, and his speech was also very glorious in all respects. His words, which were nicely composed in highly metaphorical ornamental language, were pleasing to hear and were not only mellow but also very clearly understandable and without doubt or ambiguity. Here, Srila Prithu Maharaj's speech is very nicely being glorified. Srila Prithu Maharaj's speech is very nicely being glorified here. It is very sweet. Although it is very sweet and very refined and cultured and polished, but it is not golmol. It is very clear and it is without ambiguity. It was clearly understandable. Not like modern day description of English. The more you don't the more you don't understand the better it is. Like that. So it was very understandable. It was very specific. It was not beating around the bush. So yeah, it was not a jugglery first. It was just like many motivational talks and all. They're just going around here and there. But what is supposed to be done? That nobody knows. What is exactly supposed to be done? Nobody knows. Not like that. It was not like that. It was quite uh, powerful. And the other beautiful feature which is mentioned here is that it was sharing. It was for the benefit of humanity. It was sharing his own personal realization for benefiting the citizens. So it was not casual, callous. It was not callous and casual. It was for the benefit of the citizens. And and Prithu Maharaj is sharing the topmost benefit by sharing his own personal realization. That was the point. So beautiful. Such a beautiful explanation is given here. Prithu Maharaj.
As mentioned in verse 18, like it appears that Maharaj Prithu observed all the regulative principles before he performed the sacrifice.
Yes.
The beauty is not just the bodily features, but the audacious age because of practicing regulative principles.
Yes.
Like the modern people, they are still having a lot of cosmetic things, a lot of costly attire, all the garbage look handsome, but they are not actually handsome.
Yes.
Because their body is not वो lust से भरा हुआ body है. यहाँ पे वो odacious हो गया because following all the regulative principles.
Yes, Prithu Maharaj's body is radiating because of his spiritual advancement and dedication. Yes, that's correct. Rajovac Sabhya Shrinuta Bhadram Satvo Janhi Hagata Satsu Jikya Suhir Dharmam Avedyam Swamanishitam. King Prithu said, O gentle members of the assembly, may all good fortune be upon you. May all of you great souls who have come to attend this meeting kindly hear my prayer attentively. A person who is actually inquisitive must present his decision before an assembly of noble souls. In this verse, the word sadhava, all great souls, is very significant. When a person is very great and famous, many unscrupulous persons become his enemies. For envy is the nature of materialists. In any meeting, there are different classes of men, and therefore, it is to be supposed that Maharaj Prithu was very great. That because Maharaj Prithu was very great, he must have had several enemies present in the assembly, although they could not express themselves. Maharaj Prithu, however, was concerned with persons who were gentle, and therefore he addressed all the honest persons, not caring for the envious. He did not, however, present himself as a royal authority, empowered to command everyone. For he wanted to present his statement in humble submission before the assembly of great sages and saintly persons. As a great king of the entire world, he could have given them orders, but being so humble, meek, and honest, he presented his statement for approval in order to clarify his mature decision. Everyone within the material world is conditioned by the three modes of material nature, and therefore has four defects. But although Maharaj Prithu was above all this, still like an ordinary conditioned soul, he presented his statements to great souls, sages, and saintly persons present there. Oh, this is such a beautiful explanation about Sri Prithu Maharaj. Such a beautiful explanation. Prithu Maharaj is saying, Sadhavo. So he's in a very humble, meek, and honest mood. Prithu Maharaj is presenting his mature decision. And Prabhupada is telling that you see, each one of us have four defects. No, even though we may be devotees are sincere, but still one may get overwhelmed. There is every chance that one may get overwhelmed by the four defects. And therefore, Vaishnava principle is that a Vaishnava always presents his thoughts in the assembly of Vaishnavas for their approval. And actually, Prithu Maharaj is an authority, but he is not exercising authority. This is Vaishnava, this is servant leader, this is an acharya. Another very interesting thing we can learn from this purport is that Prabhupada is mentioning that you see Prithu Maharaj, because he was presenting, because now he was so successful and so powerful, naturally many people will be envious of him. So Prithu Maharaj not worrying about the envious is addressing the gentle. So this is the way of dealing. Not worry about the envious people, but go on focusing on the gentle people. Like that. Therefore, actually, you see, the point is see, modern day definition of heroism is what? Find out one person who is envious and break his teeth. And if you get shaheed in that attempt, then that is heroism. That is modern day notion of heroism. Is it not? Find out one enemy, just smash him up. Is it not? But Vedic aphorism is not like that. Vedic aphorism is just neglect the envious, focus on the gentle. Is it? So one person comes and obstructs our Sankirtan. We don't take a vow that okay, this person I'm going to smash his existence, and until he is there, Krishna consciousness, no matter how big that person is, how much he can stop. Like that. If a person wants to stop by just two hands, how much he can stop? But with a 100 feet road, how much he will stop? He can only stop 10 feet. So that's the point. And if it is ocean, how much you stop? So life is like an ocean. Focus on the gentle. Prithu Maharaj steering, gearing and steering for the gentle and neglecting the envious. The envious should be neglected. Envious should not be smashed. It should be neglected. Because smash, you're wasting your time. The envious will remain envious ever. The Shastras give the analogy of the snake. No? So don't try to speak good words to the snake. His poison will not end. Focus on somebody else. Is it not? The snake will always remain snake. Is it not? Focus on someone else. So that's the idea here. Very interesting. Dandadharu Raja Prajanam Iha Jojitaha Rakshita Vrittidaha Sveshu Setushu Stapita Prithak. King Prithu continued, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have been appointed the king of this planet, and I carry the scepter to rule the citizens, protect them from all danger, and give them employment according to their respective positions in the social order established by the Vedic intention. A king is supposed to be appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to look after the interests of his particular planet. On every planet, there is a predominating person. Just as we now see that in every country there is a president. If one is a president or king, it should be understood that this opportunity has been given to him by the Supreme Lord. According to the Vedic system, the king is considered a representative of Godhead. And is offered respect by the citizens as God in the human form of life. Actually, according to the Vedic information, the Supreme Lord maintains all the living entities, and especially human beings, to elevate them to the highest perfection. After many births in the lower species, when a living entity evolves to the human form of life, and in particular to the civilized human form of life, his society must be divided into 4 gradations, as ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhagavad Gita. Chaturvarnayam Nyashishtam. The 4 social orders, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, are natural divisions of the human society. And as declared by Prithu Maharaj, every man in its respective social order must have proper employment for his livelihood. It is the duty of the king or the government to ensure that the people observe the social order and that they are also employed in their respective occupational duties. In modern times, since the protection of the government of the king has been withdrawn, social order has practically collapsed. No one knows who is a Brahmana, who is a Kshatriya, who is a Vaishya, who is a Shudra. And people claim to belong to a particular social order by birthright. It is the duty of the government to re-establish social order in terms of occupational duties and the modes of material nature. For that will make the entire world population actually civilized. If it does not observe the institutional functions of the 4 social orders, human society is no better than animal society, in which there is never tranquility, peace and prosperity, but only chaos and confusion. Maharaj Prithu, as an ideal king, strictly observed the maintenance of the Vedic social order. Prajayate praja. The word praja refers to one who takes birth. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj guaranteed protection for Prajanam, all the living entities who took birth in his kingdom. Praja refers not only to human beings but also to animals, trees, and every other living entity. It is the duty of the king to give all the living entities food and protection. The fools and rascals of modern society have no knowledge of the extent of the responsibility of the government. Animals are also citizens of the land in which they happen to be born, and they also have the right to continue their existence at the cost of the Supreme Lord. The disturbance of the animal population by wholesale slaughter produces a catastrophic future reaction for the butcher, his land, and his government. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining so beautifully that the responsibility, the nature of the responsibility of the king, the responsibility of the king is quite intense. It's quite intense because it is not just limited to on one hand, it's not just limited to material care. It includes spiritual care, and therefore, as the society becomes civilized, the matrix of a civilized society is the civilized means what? Civilized means progressing towards auspiciousness, and demoniac means progressing toward degradation. So modern day society, demoniac. Why? Progressing towards degradation and hellish life. Vedic time civilized because progressing towards divinity. So what do you mean progressing toward divinity? Progressing toward divinity means material activities centered around spiritual focus. Material activities centered around the spiritual goal. So therefore, material activity is becoming subservient to the spiritual goal. That's the point. So that's what Prabhupada is explaining here. Now, and therefore, it is the king's responsibility to see that the Varnashrama should be. Civilization means Varnashrama, means progressing towards Haritoshana, being centered around Krishna. That's the point. And now Prabhupada explains the next, the other amazing responsibility or the other insightful responsibility of the king. The king's responsibility and dominion is not just to human beings who are born in the kingdom, but it is towards animals also, every living entity. So that's why the king's responsibility is huge. And that's why unless he's a great devotee of the Lord, he will not be able to fulfill his responsibility properly. Like that. That's what Prabhupada is mentioning here. So beautiful, so amazing. Yes.
But instead of giving freedom to the Brahmana and Vaishnavas, they are only suppressed, killed, and Malaysians are promoted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. तस्य मे तत् अनुष्ठानात् यनाहो ब्रह्मवादिना लोकस्य कामा सन्दोहा यस्य तुष्यति तिष्ठति. Maharaj Prithu said, I think that upon the execution of my duties as king, I shall be able to achieve the desired objectives described by experts in Vedic knowledge. This destination is certainly achieved by the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of all destiny. Maharaj Prithu gives special stress to the word Brahmavadinaha by experts in the Vedic knowledge. Brahma refers to Vedas, which are also known as Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound. Transcendental sound is not ordinary language, although it appears to be written in ordinary language. Evidence from the Vedic literature should be accepted as final authority. Brahmavada, Shabda Brahma, final authority. In the Vedic literature, there is much information. And of course, there is information about the execution of the king's duty. A responsible king who executes his appointed duty by giving proper protection to all the citizens on his planet is promoted to the heavenly planetary kingdom. This is also dependent upon the pleasure of the Supreme God. It is not that if one executes his duty properly, he is automatically promoted. For promotion depends on the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It must ultimately be concluded that one can achieve the desired result of his activities upon satisfying the Supreme Lord. This also confirmed the first canto, second chapter of Bhagavatam. अतः पुंभीतु च श्रेष्ठ वर्णाश्रम विभाग स्थानुस्थितस्य धर्मस्य संसिद्धिर्हरितोषणम्. The perfection of one's execution of appointed duties is the ultimate satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. The word Kama Sandoha means achievement of the desired result. Everyone desires to achieve the ultimate goal of life. But in modern civilization, the great scientists think that man's life has no plan. This gross ignorance is very dangerous and makes the civilization very risky. People do not know the laws of nature, which are the rulings of the Supreme Personality of God. Because they are atheists of the first order, they have no faith in the existence of God and His rulings, and therefore do not know how nature is working. This gross ignorance of the mass of people even the so-called scientists and philosophers makes it a very risky situation when human beings do not know whether they are making progress in life. According to Bhagwatam 7.5.30, they are simply progressing to the darkest region of material existence. Adanta gobhir pishitam tamishvam. The Krishna consciousness movement has therefore been started to give philosophers, scientists, and people in general the proper knowledge about the destiny of life. Everyone should take advantage of this movement and learn the real goal of life. Yes. So here it is mentioned that the scriptures are the final authority. The scriptures are a final authority. And so here it is being mentioned that one who executes his duties as directed by the scriptures, then such a person will be promoted to heavenly planet. And then Prabhupada makes it the point that it is not just automatic, but it depends on the sanction and the pleasure of the Supreme. And what to say of heavenly planet? The Lord is pleased, one will be promoted to the spiritual planet. So here Prabhupada is quoting the famous verse, Ataha Pumpir Duja Sheshta from 1-2 out of the first canto, second chapter. That the ultimate satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will lead to perfection of one's activities. Perfection of one's activities. Otherwise, Prabhupada is saying, one doesn't do that, it's a very risky situation. What is the risk? The risk is to glide down to darkest regions of hell. That is the risk, great risk, gliding down to the dark. And therefore, Prabhupada is telling that the Krishna consciousness movement has been started to give the philosophers, scientists, and people in general the proper knowledge about the destiny of life. So everyone should take advantage of this movement, and everyone should learn the real goal of life. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare. We will continue with Prithu Maharaj's amazing instructions in our next class. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagwatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Bol.